You're listening to the Waypoint TV Podcast Network, brought to you by Academy Sports and Outdoors.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Bowhunter Chronicles podcast, brought to you by Huntworth. Huntworth gear for all types of weather, all types of terrain, all types of budgets. It's clothing that just works. Check them out at huntworthgear.com. And just coming back from Colorado using the Vertec pattern, I really like that pattern. I'm a fan of the Tarnin, but for Western stuff and grassland, stuff like that, it doesn't work. I'm sure it would work fine, but it just doesn't blend in as well. And the Vertec is like a really incredible all-around pattern. And I was never like the have-to-match camo guy, but I was wearing my Tarnin pants and a Vertec top, and I was like, man, this is stupid. And I had to wear solid color pants. Like, I just couldn't do it. So, yeah, a little insight into how my brain works there. But like I say, check them out at huntworthgear.com. Check out that Vertec stuff. Really cool pattern. And then they do have some of the heat boost stuff, the Grayling hoodie, a vest, the heat boost vest, in a solid color as well. So definitely go over there, check that out. And the Latitude stuff, like, have you guys checked out the new Grit series? So they've just launched the second episode of Grit, and I got to give D-Rock a ton of credit. The editing on there, the storyline, the way that it's going is just awesome. I know those guys personally, so it makes it even cooler to be able to watch it and see, like, in real time how all that stuff's going on. But man, that series is incredible. And if you haven't checked out the Latitude gear, the new Maverick saddle, super comfortable. Really love that saddle. I'm a minimalist, so it's very, very comfortable and very, very simple. And obviously I'm a Huntworth guy, but their stuff now available, the Maverick saddle, dump pouches, their knee pads, back bend, they have all that stuff available in the old school real tree camo. So they have the tree bark, I think it is, and then they have like the one with the leaves on it and stuff like that. I like the tree bark, like that reminds me of my childhood. That stuff looks really cool. Go over there, check that out. And then, obviously I'm on year 2 with their sticks, and they're incredible. I love the sticks. And they do have a new stealth strip kit for the sticks that is in that tree bark as well. So go over there, check it out. You can use code BHC for 15% off. That just kind of shows them that you guys are listening and paying attention. Doesn't really help me out other than, letting them know that. And there are better codes out there. I got to talk to those guys about that. So, maybe search around and you can get 20% off using one of the other ones. So I definitely got to look into that. But hey, I want you guys to use their stuff. I want you to get the best price. That I want you to end up using it. That's really all I care about. Holy crap. We've got 2 new Patreons since last time. Maybe I shouted out the one guy, Mitchell Decker. I think he's coming up to the Patreon hunt out of Kalamazoo. And then Kevin Defoe from Howard City. Guys, definitely sent you an email. Get in the Marco Polo group. That thing is on fire right now. So since the Michigan opener, or since the season's opened, we've had Landon, TJ, Jake, and myself all kill bucks. And then does. Brad Collings has 2 does at least down, one of them with a trad bow. My buck was with the trad bow. Brad Luttrell, he's got one down. Both of the Sheldons, Larry and Sam, maybe shot a double the other night. And Eric Redder, I think he's got 2 down. Maybe just one with a bow, maybe one with a muzzleloader. But I mean, it's on fire. And to be able to watch these guys track deer, shoot deer, hear about the setups, all that stuff in real time is, man, it makes this the best time of year as we're leading into our Patreon camp. And all of this has happened, during the time that we were out in Colorado, come back home, right into Michigan bow season. Best time of year for us as hunters. And it's just amazing. We do have our quarterly giveaway coming up. I'm going to do that after the Patreon hunt. There's just too much going on, but giving away gear from Latitude, Huntworth, Big Shot targets. They sent us 2 targets up at deer camp that we're giving away. We're going to have a shooting contest, and we're giving away one for the biggest deer. You can save 10% over there using code BCP. Spartan Forge, they hooked us up. All the Patreons, anybody that didn't have it, give them a membership, at least right now, so that they can use Blue Force Tracker, so that we can all share pins, all of that stuff. Using that, and I used that out in Colorado, and not the Blue Force Tracker, but I used Spartan Forge, and it was 100% bug-free, using the offline maps back and forth. Just incredible, really awesome tool. I've had issues with all of them in the past where you're offline and have a little bit of issue with the maps pulling up or being blurry or any of that stuff. No issues this time. Really great. Check them out. And then, stuff from our partners with Lucky Buck, Canati, Zinger, Genesis 3D. Genesis 3D has a Patreon code. So for you Patrons, if you want anything from Austin and it's not going to be up at the Patreon camp, definitely hit me up. I'll give you that code and we'll help you out. But really looking forward to this camp. This podcast, the only thing I can say about it is find yourself some guys like this. Listen to this podcast. Surround yourself with these types of people so you can have this type of experience. People who want you to win more than yourself. Selfless people. Find that. Look for that in a hunting partner. Not necessarily someone who's going to put you on a big buck or something like that. As always, thanks for supporting the show. Thanks for listening. Check us out on Patreon, patreon.com/Bowhunter Chronicles podcast. And as always, thanks for listening. All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Bowhunter Chronicles podcast. And holy crap, has a lot happened since I recorded the last podcast. We were back from a 1-week hiatus. So sorry about that, but lots of things going on. We're sitting here. We're back in the old pole barn. Uncle Frank and Ernie. I think John is in Kentucky doing a crane job, trying to get some stuff taken care of. House is almost done, I'm told. So hope to see John here in the future. But we're out in the pole barn. There's a giant deer hanging. There's a little deer cut up. Antlers on the ground, elk antlers over here, and it's been a hell of a couple weeks. So, but we're gonna go all the way back to Frank and Ernie left. When did you guys leave for
19th?
September 19th, and out to Colorado. So I said, yeah, I'm going on this elk hunt for Colorado. Whenever they had their first time going out there, Frank, he was so excited. He said, Junior, he's got this house and we're going to be able to stay there and it's going to be great and it'll house this many guys. And you in? I said, yeah, I'm in. Of course I'm in. And then fast forward 6 months and he's like, we had our meeting and you're out. There's not room for you, so you can't go. And so that was 5 years of me just telling Frank, like, oh, is this the hunt? You're going back elk hunting. Oh, on the hunt that I was invited on and then uninvited on, right? And so this year he says, yeah, you're in. It gives me and so I had to say yes. And of course, missed my buddy's wedding, missed my daughter's birthday, all this stuff after the fact. There was no like, let me check my calendar. It was just like, yeah, I'm in. So I'm in. And after you pay the money, then then I found out all of that stuff. So, anyways, I was going to label this podcast the $100,000 do-it-yourself elk, and we'll kind of get into that. But let's start with like the surroundings of like where we were staying and how you guys found the house and stuff. Because I've been on a few different elk hunts, and you guys have done it now out of a house and 4-wheelers and all that stuff. So John and I did it on foot, like DIY, public land, on our backs. We hunted with Joe. I hunted with Joe where it was on a 4-wheeler out of a camper. I did the spike camp on horseback with my dad through an outfitter. And then now I did it this way. So what would you say, like, for guys that were talking about like DIY? Because this isn't a super cheap way to go about it. Like, this isn't the most budget friendly way, but it also wasn't the same price as a outfitter. I mean, tags aside, you're going to have to pay for a tag, but you guys going out there, how did you end up at this place, and how would you describe it?
Danny Jr. found it, originally, and talked to him. He talked to him last year, and they said that they had a week available the last week of September, but he said usually they do gun hunts. They weren't even thinking about a group to come out and archery hunt, and ended up. He said, well, let me talk to my dad, he owns the place, and so he talked to his dad, and he calls Danny back, and he said, you guys can come out and do, last week of September, and we're thinking, man, this is going to be, tits, because, the last week, they're going to be bugling and everything's going to be cold, and so we get set up with this dude, and we pay our money, up front, and get our licenses and all that. And because last year it was a draw too, wasn't it, Ern? Didn't they make it a draw last year?
This
2 years, the last 2 years now.
Was it 2? I don't know.
Because you guys.
It was because we split up on the buddy system both times. But somebody didn't.
Me and Harry didn't put in because we thought, we could just
still
do
get private land
over the counter.
Which is, I guess, this next year coming.
That's going to be a draw.
Not going to be the case.
Right. But anyways, we did that, and ended up those guys drew, and then they said there were some leftovers, So I talked to Harry, and Harry and I just went ahead and applied for those. We ended up getting them too last year.
Which the difference being, when you're applying, that means you can hunt private or public. In this case, that's ones we really wanted because of the BLM that's associated with these properties.
Right.
Yeah, so I basically knew none of this going out there. I just said, yeah, I'm in. And so there was private land to hunt, and then a lot of that private land gave access to a bunch of BLM. So right. I think I probably spent 40% of my time on BLM and 60% on private, right. Or, but a lot of the spots we were hunting, it was like almost the opposite of what you would do if you were hunting public and you were kind of in an area like that, where we were like on the private, like right over the line on BLM, where you could do the exact same thing coming from BLM. You just couldn't go on to the private. It was kind of interesting how that worked out, in hindsight.
But some of the problem with the BLM is you'd have to be from the Alps to get in there, because it'd be impossible almost for people to get to that spot.
Yeah. So I had no idea what was going on. And like with my job set up as little as I work or what, however, anybody wants to give me shit about it. I can't take the weekends off really. So they drove out there over a weekend and it was my weekend to work. So it was like I could have to beg, borrow, steal, cheat to get someone to work for me, or work those hours and just fly out there. So I said, you know what? I'm just going to fly out there, piss on you guys, peasants.
Yeah. You guys haul all my shit out there, my quad, my gear, my bed, anything I've got.
We sighted in his bow and shit before he got there.
I mean, it was like,
Yeah, well, we'll get to that in a minute, and then so another guy, John, who had been out there with you guys before, it was like a light bulb went off for him. He was like, wait a minute, I can just fly out there? He's like, I'm going to need to do that too because of work. And so we flew out there together. So it was really cool. Great dude. But yeah, so you guys set out. Let's talk about your journey out there.
Oh, Lord.
Because that was one thing that I never would have thought of. I mean, I've driven so the last time I hunted Colorado for the spike camp, we drove out there. And when John and I went out to Idaho, we went out there, we drove out there, and we rented a truck. So it wasn't like.
But you guys didn't haul any trailers, did you?
No.
No, see, this is hauling, all the gear.
Yeah. So we meet a dude from Ohio in Effingham, Illinois. Then we transfer over. He's got a diesel like mine. So he pulls one rig with 4 quads.
Right.
I pulled the big 24-foot enclosed trailer with all the equipment and 3 quads. So we're tooling out 70. We're in, I'd say western Kansas.
Yeah.
At night.
Well, we'd gotten to the point where, like Danny will figure out where we're going to be at a certain time, and so he gets us a motel. He rents 2 rooms.
Yeah, ahead of time.
And we have, so many hours left to drive to that position.
Yeah, it kind of gives us a target. We like to go maybe 16 hours that day. But we get to western Kansas, and we're still, I'd say over 100 miles from where we really wanted to be.
Right.
And the truck behind us said, hey, something just fell off, and I seen sparks. And we go, oh, Lord. So we pull over and looked this thing over head to toe, looked over. I even looked under my truck, and we can't find anything. So we said, well, maybe we ran over something, and it was metal, and it sparked. So off we go again. We probably got down the road 30 miles.
Yeah, if that.
Oh, it happens again. They said it happened again. So we pull over. Again, we can't find anything. We're going, what's going on? So we said, well, we got to go. We'll try to make it to where we're staying. We didn't get very far, and the 3rd leaf spring broke on the right rear.
You were passing that some, I remember, and he's flashing the lights at us.
Yeah. And so that broke, and it apparently slammed down a little bit. But anyways, so we got pulled over, and we took an exit. And we were 30 miles from a place where we could stay.
Not the place we
wanted. We were going to be like over an hour short of that. Besides that, and it's getting late because we've been pulling over. So we just locked the trailer up and went and got the motel because it was getting pretty darn late by then. It was.
Well, we realized what had happened. Spring
11 o'clock.
Spring broke on the back axle on the passenger side on the car hauling trailer.
So we just went and spent the night, and then there was 5 of us. Yeah. Get up in the morning, breakfast joint across the street, go over there, and sure as hell, there's a group of old boys having breakfast. So a senior who will talk to anybody at any time. You never know when he's going to get his next public land or private land hunting spot, right? They give him a name of a number of guy that could take care of us. And we're going, no way.
Fabrication shop.
Yep. So we go over there, me and Junior, and I don't know who went with us.
Well, the rest of us went back. Remember, you guys, we all went back
Jay.
to the trailer. Then you guys took off and went there.
So, sure as hell.
Hey, everyone. This is Captain Steve Roger from Into the Blue TV. And as soon as I feel a little break from this heat, I know that hunting season is upon us. Actually, the first time I ever went hunting, a buddy took me. Wasn't my father or my grandfather. In fact, I took my father on his very first hunt. Well, Academy Sports and Outdoor Stores has everything to gear up for the field for less. Plus, you can shop a wide selection of ammo, shotguns, deer corn, rifle, feeder, game cameras, camo, and more from the brands you trust. Text HUNT24 to 22369 to take $20 off a $100 purchase when you shop hunting supplies at academy.com. Need a hunting license? Pick it up in store while you're shopping.
Hunting boots are a critical component of any successful hunt. Whether walking a short distance to your blind or trudging miles through rugged terrain, your feet are carrying the load. Without the right boots, you could give up early and lose out on that trophy just over the ridge. At Midway USA, we make selecting boots for your next hunt easier. With just a few clicks of a mouse, you can decide on what's important, like waterproofing, insulation, size, width, and savings. For just about everything for shooting, hunting, and the outdoors, check out MidwayUSA.com.
We bring that section in there, and she pulls out a brand new one, and we're going, no way. Dan says, you got two? Yeah. Pulls out another one and a bolt kit. So we said, all right, we're in business now. So back we go. Oh, by the way, during this episode, Frank's old 200-pound floor jack decided to die.
How long, Adam, did
And
we?
he's had it for like 100 years.
1994.
Yeah.
And it came out of the trash. So,
Yes,
I mean,
originally.
So it died.
So how many vehicles
oh, Jesus.
has that thing jacked up?
Oh, yeah.
And, you know.
So I said, look, I've been wanting an aluminum one at home. I'll go to Harbor Freight on our route. I'll grab one. So I grabbed one. Get it all fixed. We're happy. We're going, getting ready. All right, everybody, let's go. 30 miles. It wasn't even that. It was just a few miles, and got a phone call. Said the wheels hopping a little bit in the back where the leaf spring broke. I'm going, hopping? I don't care how
80 miles
bad
an
you
hour,
put the
you know?
leaf spring on there. It might wear, but it shouldn't hop. It didn't hop long. Boom.
Blue tire.
So then we pull over again on this Nightmare Edition, put the spare on. And everybody's worried about the fact that the leaf springs weren't on perfectly or something. So then he decides to do the other side, seeing as we had a place to do it. So he pulls the wheel, changes the leaf springs on the other side. So needless to say, what probably happened when the leaf spring actually broke, it come down, slammed, and it damaged the belt on that tire.
Right.
That's why it was hopping. Anyways, we get past that, and finally we're off and going, headed to Denver. And somebody, all of a sudden, the other trailer don't have no tail lights.
Harry was pulling.
What the hell? Because it's dark by now. So we pull over again. No fuses in town. I made a jumper. I stuck it in the fuse panel. Off we go. We get almost into Denver, and the engine light comes on in my truck. Says my diesel exhaust filter's full, service now. So it's late. We don't know what the hell we want to do. We thought about switching rigs, give me the light one, and just go, because I had what's called limited power. Did a bunch of research. Yep, I can probably go, but I got limited power. I hauled that big thing up through the mountains, over the pass, and down. And
first we went to Beaver Creek, though.
Yeah, we did a tour of a place called Beaver Creek with no place to...
About 15 miles. We got off at an exit, and we were going to switch trailers, and then we couldn't find a spot to switch trailers, so we just...
Couldn't find a flat spot.
But the road just kept going. It didn't have a spot where we could turn around. We went like 15 miles and got back on the highway.
1 mile away from where we got off.
Well, and then we're going, and I said, you guys want to get off at Beaver Creek again, you know? Or what? No, we ain't going to do that again, you know?
So we make it and stuff like that. So I'm kind of
freaking
in
out.
a bad way because of the truck, you know? So we get there, and I talked to the owners of the place we're staying, our 3-generation car lot owners. They had like 3 of them.
Car dealerships,
big dealerships. And they said, well, no, I take it to Ford down there, and I can meet you there. So the following day, which was a Monday.
2 days later.
2 days later. So I didn't go hunting. I went.
Well, you got to make it through the mountains, but it was with limited power.
Limited power.
So
it actually worked okay.
I told him, I says most.
It's just like having no turbo.
The old diesels were aspirated. They weren't turboed. So I said, you got a 6.7 diesel, and once Ernie, you should have seen his face. He starts up the first mountain out there out of Denver, and he goes, here we go, and it starts just like it's going to puke down, in high gear. It's going, and it goes, shifts down, and
Up
she
the
starts
hill we
picking
went.
up, speed. And I said, "See, Aaron, you're going to be all right."
Well, I turned around and said, "We're going to make it," but that's not. It's a couple hours, hour and a half of probably a good hour and a half of
Oh, yeah.
dandy roads and 3 tunnels. So I go to the dealership, and long story short, and my wife and I were going to buy in the spring, early summer, a new diesel so we could do some touring in the country, pull on a fifth wheel. I didn't trust mine. It was 10 years old.
Didn't trust it in the mountains, huh?
So we get in there.
Scared,
It may have just needed a regen from, they computerize it. They do a regen on it. They burn them real hard, or they'd remove it and take it to a shop there that
They do
does a super burnout, or replace it. So I just said, listen, what do you got for trucks? They had a lot of trucks. The most amazing, nobody here has trucks. Well, this was like an A-rate dealer. They moved tons of vehicles. They had over 20 Super Duties. And then they just happened to get the one in the day before. Hadn't even prepped it yet. And I looked at it. I says, make me a deal on that one right there in the trade. I bought a truck when I was in Colorado.
This is only how much, Aaron? 70 grand?
Well, yeah, it was a little north of 70 when I was all done.
Yeah.
Well, I got a trade, so
Yeah.
I got to hit my advisor up for 50 grand here so I can pay it off now.
We were really happy that he did it, too.
Yeah, it was a nice ride back.
It was
That's
a
a nice
beautiful
ride.
ride back. Oh, yeah. Hell yeah.
So that was the getting there. And then I drove it away after being there 4 hours.
Yeah.
And all I had to do was come back in a couple of days. I had my title overnighted and sign it off for them, and that's it. I had a truck.
And so that was the day that the other guy's name is John. John and I flew in, and we got there, and we ended up getting to the house around like 1 a.m. or something like that. And we were getting up at 4:30 to go hunt. So that morning we slept in. Frank slept in. Ernie was the only one that come back hunting, and come back from hunting. And I swear to God, when he came back from hunting, like he got out of the truck and his eyes were like as big as softballs. And how was that morning?
Oh, man. I wasn't even planning on hunting exactly where I did. I go way up the rocky stuff, and the very first spot to park, you walk 300 yards, you enter an old 2-track, and I go down about a half a mile. I was going to sit in a place where I hunted last year. I got to the end of that thing, and the elk started screaming.
Ernie.
And it was 10 minutes before I could move in there, but there were so many of them around me. I heard the cows chirping, breaking stuff. I heard the 2 bulls screaming right up above me. I mean, they're only 20 feet up, but then a big flat spot. There was one on the mountain already up, and he was screaming. There was 2 more to the right on the base. They were screaming, and there's another one at the north base that was screaming. I could hear more screaming over the hill on the other property, and I didn't know what to do. I really didn't. There were so many of them so close. I just started easing my way up in there. I should have been a little more aggressive, but I finally made it back to a place I knew, and there was at least 6 bulls within 150 yards all screaming, and I could hear cows chirping and stuff like that, watching them go up the side of that one mountain screaming. They're all, a bunch of them going up there. It was like I was in Jurassic Park. It was the most unbelievable thing that I've ever personally witnessed since I've started hunting. It was, some of the TV stuff you see noise-wise, if I could have had that, it was even better than most of them.
What's interesting about that is when I told John, when we were going out there, John Boersma, he's like, oh, the 23rd is the autumnal equinox. And he said that's peak breeding. And so that was that Monday. So that was the morning after. And it was going bananas up there. And so I'm like, holy crap, like this is cool, and I had no idea what to expect when I got out there, because it's just, I'm just going to kind of go along for the ride because it's your guys' hunt. And I fully intended on like hunting with Frank, and that's kind of like how I went into it. Was like, oh, I'm just going to, hunt at Frank's pace, like wherever he's going to go, blah, blah, blah. And then we were figuring out what we were going to do for the evening, and Ernie's like, well, oh yeah, I'm going back right there. And so John, he had been hunting with Ernie last year, so he's like, well, I'll go up there with you. Frank was going to hunt with Senior, and Junior was going up behind the place where we had been, because he saw a bull and some cows and stuff in there that morning, or the morning prior or something. So I was like, okay. So I went, and it's like, I don't know how far it is. I don't think it's very far. Like as the crow flies, it's like a mile, 2 miles.
Longer ride though.
Oh God, it's 30 minutes or something to get around the mountain to get over there. But like, I can, where we were at, we can see the mountain where these guys are at, and they can see the mountain where we're at. It's not like they can see us. It's a mile away, but it seems like it's just right there. So we go up there, and my elk hunts in the past have always like, I don't know how to say it. Like they've been hard work. Like it's been, even when we were hunting with Joe, like we would park the quads, and there was, a fair amount of walking and chasing and bugling and doing this stuff. And that's kind of like what I took away from this, was being able to hunt with guys who have killed elk and have consistently kill elk, and being in a place where it was almost like these elk were not pressured, or they didn't care, because of the way they were at. And I don't think it was because it was public land or private land. I think it was because it was private land that butted up to the BLM that had private land on the other side. So it was like, it really made me think about how, like if I were going to go look again in places where there was private land, if I could get on the public in between the two, it was almost like on a very large scale, like if you were hunting deer in, say, Michigan or somewhere where.
Well, and you got to take into consideration too. Then you've already had 3 full weeks of season,
for these elk to be pushed.
Yeah, you've had
condensed
archery plus muzzleloader,
but
and we're there
virtually zero pressure on the pieces we hunt.
Yes, absolutely. And that, I think that
2 of them do a little muzzleloader hunt, and that's up where I hunt.
But that, and they killed elk up there.
They got them, both got them.
So I mean, you can see by where we were, that those elk weren't bothered. As far as pressured.
So the guys from Ohio, they are hunting a different piece that's like somewhat in between where I was hunting and Frank and Ernie were hunting. And then, Junior and I were the only ones that went up behind things. So we go up there and we park and we walk in, and we're like, as far as elk hunting goes, we were like on the wrong side of a mountain. Like, so we were on like the sunny side of a mountain, like waiting for the elk to get up and kind of move their way down. And so we're like thinking we're going to have to wait, all the way until the sun goes down, whatever. We're just sitting there. I don't know if we called at all. And I looked up, and there's 4 elk or 3 elk right there. And it was like, for me, it's always been, that's what I was getting at. It's like, it's always been like hard. So not like you just walk out and like, oh, there's elk, and I was like, holy shit, there's 3, and they were 90 yards above us. And then we had to move to get out of the sun, and, we're sitting there, we called a little bit, I think. And then we found out later it was a satellite bull comes running around and pushing them cows around. And it was like, I've been here for, 6 hours or something, as far as hunting, I've been hunting for 2 hours. And there's a freaking bull and cows, and I'm just like, holy shit, and we're not out there bugling or chasing them or running around the mountain. It's just like some cow calling, looking, playing the wind, and super cool, so we're messing around and just waiting for the sun to go down, because we were just kind of like exposed. So we just had to sit in the shade and kind of wait, try and call. And it was all thick like oak brush. There was no like moving around on them or anything like that. So we were just sitting there waiting, and nothing really comes of it. And then it, gets dark, and we heard some bugles like far off, like over on their side of the mountain and stuff. And needless to say, what was going on the other side of the valley was pretty wild. So I don't know who wants to go first,
But so that was the night that
so that was the first night.
Senior and I went up in there.
Yeah.
Because I'd hunted up in there where you was, before, but then I figured, you'd be more adapted to Danny, you know what I mean? And I asked him, I said, hey, all right, if Adam goes, sure, He said, he might run by me. And I said, well, I know he'd run by me, so I don't need that. So I Senior and I went and hunted this other spot where Danny had missed one last year because he had back trouble and he had to hunt with a crossbow. And he missed a cow there, and they had opportunities at other elk, So, and I had hunted that spot with those two last year. I'd been in there. So we start walking up in there, and we get to this opening on the trail there, and it was still pretty early, so, and we weren't really, we weren't talking or anything like that, but we got to a certain point and we were looking at each other and we said, well, let's just wait here, for it to get a little later, and see what's going on. So we were telling stories for almost an hour and a half, whispering. We weren't, and I was laughing my ass off. Dan was telling me shit about a moose that would come at and a bear that come after him and all this, and I'm going like, my God, how much bad luck can one guy have, And it was like, we were there for a long time, and all of a sudden it started cooling down a little bit, and the sun was going down, and all of a sudden just bugle right over, up on the mountain right there to the right. He looks at me and he goes, game on. Like that, I go, yeah, cool. And he goes, and if you miss, I'm cutting your fucking string. And he says, and I'm going, what? And he goes, I mean it, so, okay. So we get down in this deal. We start down the trail. He says, sit or stand right here. So I get my nippers out, and it's all oak scrub and crap, you know what I mean? And it's thicker than shit in there. So I get my stuff out and I'm trimming, get it all trimmed out. He drops below me, probably, 40, 50 yards. I mean, I can't tell where he's at. He's in the stick shit, And finally I'm all set up, and standing there. And he told me to watch the trail, so I'm watching the trail, that we just came down. It's kind of to my right. And all of a sudden he starts calling. Well, then immediately this cow starts calling back, right out in front of me, and apparently she was bedded there the whole time. We're bullshitting, and everything, and she didn't ever hurt us or whatever. But as soon as he starts calling,
she could have been coming down too. But
yeah, but I usually almost, it's almost
usually they're
like
vocal.
She like it was immediate. He called meow. She started meow, like that, So I'm going, well, shit, that ain't on the trail, It's out in front of me, So I'm kind of watching in front of me because I had a little bit of shooting there. And she kept calling. He'd call, and all of a sudden, like down in front of me, and she never broke a stick or anything. And elk are usually pretty loud, but this thing didn't make a noise. She just walks out, broadside, 30 yards, looks at me. Hey, how's it going, Frank? And I'm going like, what the shit, I'm thinking, man, I can't move, I'm in the wrong position, Bo's over here to the right, the cow's right there, and she's looking at me, and then he'd call and she'd mew, and she'd turn her head. And I thought, well, I'll move my bow, so I start moving. And then she looked back at me, it was like 5 minutes, this thing is going on. Finally, I thought, there's no way that I can shoot unless I move my feet. I have to turn a little bit. So, and it was dead silent. I just turned and it, a little bit of noise on my feet, and she just hopped into the brush. And then Dan had seen her the whole time, seeing Dan Sr., and he was calling. Well, she just kept calling back, She didn't get spooked or anything. She just didn't like it. And I didn't know that she walked down in front of him and was standing at 30 yards. And he shoots at her and shot right over her back, So I'm going, I none of that. I didn't know anything going on. But I kept hearing her call, and she called after that too, and he was calling with her, I don't know. I stood there for the longest time, but I had turned my body then, where she was at, where she came out. So it was a while, and then all of a sudden I just kind of looked over to the right, and all of a sudden, holy shit, man, here comes a set of antlers around the corner of this bush. Comes out, and I'm going like, oh my God. I said, how can I screw this up, And when he came out, he had his head down and then he walked toward me, almost right straight at me. And I'm thinking, holy crap, what am I going to do, And the cow's calling and Dan's calling, and he just stops and he's looking. Pretty soon, he took another, I don't know, 8 or 10 big steps, turned broadside, didn't even look at me. I drew the bow back and let her rip, man. I seen an arrow in him, and he ran into a frickin' brush pile that 10 guys couldn't have moved. I'm not kidding you. His thing was busting shit like 2 inches in diameter. He's just smashing it, and he falls almost down in it and just busting everything out. And then he goes out the other end of it, and I'm thinking, I didn't hear nothing. I don't hear shit, And Dan's still calling and the cow's still calling. So I thought,
Midway USA brand product designers have one straightforward goal: develop high-quality, technically sound products and deliver them to customers at reasonable prices. If you are immersed in the shooting sports industry and pay close attention to every single detail, you know our products are built right and stand up to everyday use. Who has shooting mats and range bag systems to hunting clothing and just about everything for the outdoors? Log on and shop 24/7 with super fast shipping. MidwayUSA.com. Whether you're just looking to stay warm during a hunt or need maximum concealment, the clothing you wear can make or break a hunt. At MidwayUSA.com, we understand hunting clothing has come a long way with more meticulously crafted camo patterns, advanced scent control technologies, and weatherproof options to withstand the elements. Hunters have to wait until their favorite season, but shouldn't wait on gear, which is why Midway USA offers super fast shipping. When you're ready for your next system, log on to MidwayUSA.com.
I don't know what to do, so I just put another arrow on. I'm sitting there, holding an arrow on there, and it was making some noise on my bow too, you know what I mean? That bouncing off it and shit, So I'm going, this is just happened, you know what I mean? This is unreal.
So I want to know, at this point, you've shot a lot of animals.
Yeah.
Lots of them. After you saw that arrow in that elk and it took off, as far as adrenaline dump or buck fever or any of that
I didn't shit
stuff.
my pants, if that's what you're saying. I didn't do that, but it might have been close,
You had probably a little adrenaline dump, I'd say.
Oh my God. It was in that encounter, that close,
elk.
That, and he didn't look at me though. That was the thing that was so, what he was trying to do was go below Dan and wind him, because he was calling. So, that was a great setup, but he watched that bull before I even saw him. He watched him come down that trail, and he goes, he's thinking, man, why ain't he shooting? Well, he wasn't clear for me, but then, like I said, I didn't hear anything, and he kept cow calling, and the cow kept calling, and it seems like an eternity went on, and I'm going like, God, what's going, it was just, my mind was just rushing, and then I hear the brush baking in front of me like that, and Dan walks out, excuse me, and I looked at him and I goes, is he down? And he just does this huge fist pump toward the ground, and I'm going, is he down? And he does it again, and I'm going, Dan, is he down? He goes, you fucking smoked him. He goes like that. And I goes, what? Is he dead? He goes, yeah, he's dead. What happened was the bull, when he ran through that brush, he went out the other side, and Dan watched him come out the other side, and he started immediately cow calling.
Yeah, you want to get right on it.
Yeah. And the bull stopped. He just stopped. Well, he was probably 30, 40 yards from Dan, and he was standing there looking back at him, and he just kept cow calling. And the cow was over there calling too, and then he said he took 3 big, long kind of breaths, and he said when he let the third one out, he just fell forward and dropped right there. Then he gurgled a little bit and he was done, But wild. It was probably one of the greatest experiences in my hunting career,
Well, at the same time, Dan's starting to focus on this cow. He kept calling, and
she was coming back.
Yep, she was coming back, but he says he was crying so damn hard because of what Frank just did, or what they just did.
Yeah.
He says he couldn't get the water out of his eyes, so he said to hell with it.
That's when he came up.
That's when he come up, Frank.
Oh man. Talk about 2 old boys, That was the deal. The seniors sealed the deal, I was ecstatic. I was so emotional,
And so one of the things I'll just interject here, because I didn't think about it until Frank's niece-in-law brought it up, but it's a really cool bull 5x5. It's, for a lot of like trophy hunters, they'd say, oh, whatever, but it's a nice bull. But the eye guards go like straight out and then down. So it'll just like sit perfectly on the table, straight up and down.
Yeah, it's very unique because most of them have a slight curl up.
And
on the fronts.
She says, do those normally do that? And I said, no, not at all. And she goes, oh, so it's like really kind of like one of the mutants that he usually shoots. It's right on brand. And I was like, holy shit, I didn't even realize that. But yes, absolutely. He shot a mutant elk too. So, but yeah, I mean, the coolest part about that is that, he sees the elk go down. You don't know what's going on. And, he's just super emotional, because you were able to finally, I mean, how many trips have you been on?
This is my fifth year, out there. And that was the first time I drew my bow.
But it's the closest you ever had an elk.
Yeah. 21 yards I shot him in.
But beyond that, like, how many out-of-state trips have you had without bringing home an animal with antlers?
We talked about that, and I said his luck, it was always something. Mud fell off his boots in Nebraska. There was always something. He did get a shot, but what really hurt his feelings is when the dude that kind of took us into that spot in Nebraska seen him that night, and he said he was north of 170 inches.
I knew he was big.
That's a giant.
I mean, he was a monster deer.
But then you've hit bucks in Ohio that you didn't
get. He went a couple down there and stuff, but nothing really came together ever. And it was an emotional high for all of us.
Well, I mean, and I'm on the other side of the mountain with Junior, and, there was another guy, and we'll get into it, who hit an elk that night too, texted Danny and said, I hit a big bull or whatever. And then his phone was just going bzz, 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 bzz. And then when we're walking out, Danny looks at it and he was almost in tears. Like he was I heard it in his voice that he was choked up. And he's like, Frank got one. He's like, he got one. It's dead. They found it. He got one.
The first time he buzzed me, I had to vibrate in my pocket. I was at full draw.
Yeah.
The second time.
So that's so all the while this is going on down the way a little bit, but basically below Ernie.
Yeah, they were probably a mile, 3/4 mile from us. Just as a guess, but solid 3/4 mile.
But they're
elevation-wise, they were below quite a few hundred feet.
Quite a bit below. And then, so while all that's going on, what's going on up in Jurassic Park up there where you were the morning before?
So John and I go in there in the evening Got in a little early, which is fine because we didn't know. Understand the weather was warmer than normal again. And
Record highs again.
Yeah, and it started out like 75 the first day, and it just went up, and we had them low to mid 80s there the last few days. So
Midday, we were in the 90s.
Yeah, they don't like to get up off their feet real early. About time the sun sets behind the mountain, they'll get up, or you'll start hearing them. But so John and I go in, and I tell him, here's where we need to be because there's bulls on the upper part of that mountain. Because I know I put them to bed, and I slipped out of there about 9 o'clock. So I did not want to, back in the day, first couple of years we hunted when we had spike camps and hunting thousands and thousands acre of public. Well, you would devise a plan, use the wind, and you'd try to go in there and get them. Well, I knew I didn't want to go up there and bump them, so I backed out. So we're in there sitting, and sure as hell, it wasn't long, and bugle happens on the mountain. Another one to the south went off. So we got 3 so far going off. Then we heard cows. Well, what they do is they come out of this bowl up there, and then they stand there, and they're looking down because John and I are calling. We're both calling with different calls, trying to sound like elk. And he says, bull, up on top, coming down. He says, cows coming too. And it wasn't too long, and they took a route about 50 yards to my left and stayed in the little bit darker stuff. And this bull was absolutely screaming and must have been ripping everything up in his path. And then he got down in there, and then he bumped. For some reason, the calf jumped out first, then went over to what was roughly 30 yards. Giant cow, who John and I have both said we've never seen one that big, come out right beside her. So I'd drawn already. So first year with lit knocks, which is cool. John's sitting behind me, 25 feet, right in line with this, so he sees the whole thing. The shot went off, and it looked really good. And it hit. We heard it hit. But when they moved, unfortunately, the calf's, the very top where the tail comes into the calf's rear end, arrow stuck right there in evidently the bone because it had no penetration. And when it moved, I almost threw up. John says, oh my God, that looked perfect. And it looked good for a while, but he says, I don't remember seeing that calf in the way of any of that. And people that haven't hunted understand a calf weighs over 200 pounds. It's bigger than the deer you're shooting. I mean, they're big. But the cows are, some of them are absolutely phenomenally big. But, well, that was disappointing. So the whole time, they kind of scoot off, and the bull was still in there, and he didn't stop in an opening, but he come through it, and he absolutely filled this opening. And he had, I don't know what he was, but he had a lot. So he's back and forth because that must have been the cow he was chasing. Maybe she was in heat or something. I don't know, but he was pissed. He couldn't find her. So then he goes back. Another one's coming up and over, coming straight at us. He's screaming. We got 2 over here doing it, and there was another one coming off the mountain. So I don't know if we had 5 or 6 of them screaming at the same time. Cows are chirping. It wasn't long, and 3 more come out. I was waiting for John to shoot. He couldn't get a shot. Then they come out and finally come out right in front of me at 20 yards, and I drew back, and I had 2 sticks about thumb size hanging off, dead stuff hanging off of one of the, I don't know if they're a pin oak tree or what they are, but I couldn't shoot, so I decided, like a dumbass, to kind of lean off to my left, and I hit something with my boot. So she took a hop, and they all, and we're still calling. I mean, John's still calling. Then he almost gets a shot. And then the bull's still doing his thing over here, and a couple more. We didn't know it, but a spike come up over here. At the time, we didn't know it. And then finally, by the time they come out of there, it was getting so dark, and I was in a darker spot. I couldn't see my pin. I had to let him walk at 15 yards. And the spike come by us just before that. He was closer than that. But it was just a day that, when you put it all together, I'll be lucky if I ever have a day that good again.
And so in between all of it, there was a guy from Ohio hunting a wallow, and he had a bull come in, and he got a couple shots off and hit it. Looks like he had a pass through on the first one and then shot it high on the second one. And after we all, we're all riding cloud nine, but I'll tell you, there was you get to Frank's elk, and there was some, I don't know what we forgot and had to go back and come back around, and there's a whole bunch of stuff, and there was
game bags,
a whole freaking army down there. And it kind of reminded me of the Patreon hunt when everybody was there when Tim shot his buck. However, the only difference was with Tim, there was it was like a teachable moment. Like everybody was working together, and we all knew this, and there was a whole lot of chiefs and not a lot of Indians in this breaking down this elk. And so it was an interesting endeavor, and it took a long, like way longer than it should have. And then we had to go find this other elk, and in hindsight, maybe we should have just left it overnight, but we were all excited, and Frank's shot on his elk was a little bit back and a little bit high, and it went 40 yards, whatever. This one, seeing Frank's elk made him optimistic about his hit.
Yeah, because he claimed he thought maybe he hit it roughly the same spot.
So, and I went in there. I didn't know these guys from Ohio at all. Great guys. But I just, went in there and tracked it, and, I thought, and also I didn't know where there was it wasn't my animal. And so I wasn't leading the charge. I was just along for the track, helping out. Right. And we took off and we tracked this elk. I don't know, maybe I would say a couple 100 yards from where he shot it, all the way up to the top of the mountain. And then there was a bed. Clearly bedded down. And then the blood went over the edge. And then it was about a mile later when I was like, this is really wet, bright blood. I think we're pushing this elk, but I don't know if it was midnight
at least
plus
way past
at that time. And we just tracked. And I had no idea where we were at. I wasn't running my tracker. I started later on running my tracker. I knew on my map where
but there was no communication either.
And there was
zero.
There was no
zero communication. We're still down on the bottom where he hit it, and then those guys were gone over the mountain, and then the other guys took off in the side by side to go up top to see if they could find these guys,
pull them off. Yeah.
And then Ernie is getting cold.
Yeah, Ernie was freezing. That was the only day that it really was cold at all.
Ernie was getting cold, and he's running his quad in front of me, and he's gassing me out. And I told him, I said, man, shut that thing off, dude. He goes, I got to stay warm. Finally, he says, I'm going back to the truck.
Yeah, you don't need me.
But we just kept, tracking and we were on, it was not like we were at all searching for blood. We were just following this blood trail. But like I said, it got to a point when it was a long ways away, and I was looking down and I was like, man, that blood is really shiny. And it wasn't long after that we stopped. But when I had that realization, I was like something, I think we're pushing this this elk, but I didn't know where we were at. I wouldn't even have known how to get back. And it just, we ended up stopping the track at a landmark, at like a really solid landmark. And then that's where those guys could see us, and they drove around on the side by side, picked us up, and we went back. So we got back to the camp at 2 a.m, something like that. Went back in the next day, optimistic. Well, when we got to it, we couldn't get on blood because we thought it had crossed this canal. And it turned out it just took the easiest path. It walked right down the road, went like basically to the bridge or like to the end around this canal, and then went up this game trail. And we followed it and followed it and followed it. And then that's when the blood kind of got a little bit sparse, but they still kept finding blood. And it was a mess. And so then we kind of abandoned that track and then went back out and hunted. And that's when we went back out and hunted the area that you were in the night before. And I spotted 3 cows up top that kind of did the same thing. They looked down and then they were up on a bench and they went off.
Well, that's when you guys went all the way down around the 2 knobs.
No.
With John?
No. It was me, you, and John. When the 3 of
stopped.
When the 3 of us
kept going.
No. When the 3 of us hunted your spot there, where you had seen all them elk, and I was up in front of you to the right.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. And there was 3 elk up on top, the cows, and then they took off around the other way.
John went up.
Yep. And then next morning, me and John went in there, walked all the way around. And what was really cool about this, like going out there, because I had no idea as far as like what the hunt was going to be like. I'd never been out there, and it was weird because, it was like going to on a hunt where like guys already had their spots, because it was like, oh, well, Ernie hunts here, and like Danny was up here, and there was all these like.
It's kind of a cross between deer and elk hunting, both, because you don't want to put so much pressure on them, you knock them off onto the neighbors. You just spend that limited amount of time in the morning and the evening, and carefully trying to.
But the weather dictates that.
It does
for sure.
Yeah, because if it was 50 degrees,
a lot.
But if it was 50 degrees, we would have done a lot more.
Oh,
hunting.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
But what I was getting at is that like, so I had no idea. All I knew was like where your spots, where you guys had seen elk, killed elk, been into elk before. And then from my situation, like all of my conversations on podcasts, my elk hunting, which, I saw more elk during this hunt. I heard more bugles than I've heard like in my lifetime. It was just insane. The one morning when we were in there, like they just never shut up. It was
the unfortunate thing. It was on the neighbor's property.
Yeah.
Well, it's stuff you have to deal with,
But
unreal.
But the thing is that like the information that I had, or like the knowledge, what I knew about elk hunting, as far as like where elk would be, all the pins on the map that I had pinned were exactly what was supposed to be there. And so like that was, if you're going to take away things from an unsuccessful hunt or whatever, it's like you have to be like putting those pieces together and learning. And that was really cool to be able to just look at a map and say, this is where they should be. This is where they should be. Oh, I had that pinned. And then we go there and it's like, holy shit, this is exactly what I expected. The flip side of that is hunting with guys that have killed elk and have hunted in these situations where,
At Midway USA, we know the AR-15 is one of the most popular rifles in modern American history. Known for its modularity and widespread use, it's often considered essential to any gun collection. The essential things you need to run an AR-15 are usually always in stock during shortages, things like magazines and 5.56 ammo. Whether you're looking to buy a new AR-15 or buy parts for your modern sporting rifle, log on and for just about everything for the outdoors, shop MidwayUSA.com.
Yes, we're interrupting your podcast, but be honest, wouldn't you rather be reeling in a big one at Sportsman's Paradise? At LouisianaCharterFishing.com, you can check captain availability, find nearby lodging, and book your trip. With hundreds of Louisiana Charter Boat Association guides, LouisianaCharterFishing.com makes it easy to plan your ideal trip. Inshore or offshore, saltwater or freshwater, Book now at LouisianaCharterFishing.com. What are you waiting for? These fish aren't going to catch themselves.
We only know what we're kind of shown, right? So like if you're going to gravitate towards the hunting public style, the born and raised style, Corey Jacobson, Elk 101, Jason Phelps, like name the people that kind of got us all into it, right? They're doing it this way that's like, quote unquote, like super sexy, where you're running around, you're bugling and the bulls are bugling back and all of this stuff. And when you look at the map, like this is where they're going to be. But none of those spots, give or take, I mean, some of them were the way the elk came out of there and reacted to your calling and things like that. But like, there were definitely elk there, but that wasn't the only place that there were elk, where like what you were talking about, Frank, that was just a spot like on a north facing slope it wasn't, or a south facing slope. Right. It wasn't north facing, but it was a spot that had enough shade, that was cool enough, that had these things, that had cover enough that they felt comfortable in there and they had everything that they needed. And then with just a couple of cow calls after locating them, and I learned that it was a lot more, like even more like turkey hunting than I realized, because if you think about it, like when you are out turkey hunting and you hear a gobble, you don't just like gobble right back, right?
Right.
You try to say, hey, this is where the hens are, and that was very interesting. And Junior, he ended up killing a cow, and it was the same morning that Ernie and John and I heard 400,000 bugles if we heard one, and we were up above and we could hear Danny bugling, and he said he was just pissed. So every time the bull would bugle, he would bugle. And it was like getting late in the day, and some cows came, and a bull had come over the mountain. And he said all of a sudden these cows just ran right over to him. And he ended up shooting one. And I think Senior was calling. But the bugling in that sense worked, but it called in the cows and it piqued the interest of one of the bulls.
So, here's a thought, you know what I mean? When that first day when he went in there, didn't know what to do. You know what I mean? Basically, he was like, there was so much shit going on, you know what I mean? So, but it doesn't hurt to do something, you know what I'm saying? So if you get in a situation like that, don't be afraid to, to go after it.
Senior and Junior both said it perfectly. They said, if you can't see them, they can't see you. Move. Go get them.
Well, in the first time when we were going out, elk hunting,
be more aggressive.
Before we knew Tom Taylor or Sarah or Pat from anybody, John and I talked to them as, before we were friends, as fellow hunters.
Right.
And the things that they told us from their elk hunting experience was, they're not whitetail. Elk make noise. Like, you can make noise. Now, in both of your situations, it's like where the elk were already looking, so you guys made a move and they were looking for another cow or what was making that sound.
But when you say the difference between them, I think the elk are, especially the cows, are way more social than deer, doe deer.
Yeah.
Way more social, because
absolutely
that's it's almost like that's what they want. They want to be with them, and maybe it's safety in numbers. I don't know what it is, but they're way more social and vocal.
Like I say, when
otherwise they'd be
Dan made that first call below me the night I killed that bull, immediately she started, and she never shut up. She just kept, she kept calling back, and she was moving,
Yeah.
But then when she got in there, like I said, I never heard her break a stick or anything, and I've heard elk walk before, and stuff and break shit. But it was a trail. It was on a really used game trail, and that's where he came too, and I never heard him before. I never did hear him until he ran into the brush. But, it was like, it was wild, I mean, it was just like silent too.
And as big as they are.
Oh, yeah.
And, until you've been there and walked up on a dead elk. And I mean, they're even more impressive standing there because you can't, this isn't right. They're just so freaking big.
What's funny about that is like that first night, when you killed your elk, but, me and Junior, we saw those elk up above us, and like, he thought I was lying. I mean, he didn't think I was lying necessarily, but there was big like green fields like off in the distance that we were glassing, and we had seen a bull cross, and I'm like, there's cows right there. And, he's looking down in the green field, and I'm like, they're right there, like right up above us. But we had that conversation where, it's all for us. It's like it's terrible to go through. Like, this stuff sucks. It's so, even through the game trails and stuff like that. And you're up there trying to look at them, find these elk or whatever. And he's like, he said, you think like, it's like whitetail where you're waiting for like a tail flick or something. It's like, no, they're freaking big. It's just all of a sudden there's just an animal right there. Same thing. Like, after that, when you were talking about when me and John went all the way down around the other side of the mountain, I'm sitting there, I'm calling, I'm doing the thing. And I in my head, I'm thinking, man, I just hope I would see an elk, And I like look left, look right. I look up on the mountain, and there's a freaking bull standing there. And I'm like, holy shit. Like, and there was no, like, he didn't like sneak up. He just like walked over the mountain.
They can be 100 yards away and it's look enormous.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's not like, when you're in the whitetail woods, you're like looking for a tail flick or an ear or like something
horizontal.
No,
you know what I mean?
No, like these things are just all of a sudden they're there.
Bang.
Yeah.
So, but that, I mean, what for me, a very different elk hunting experience. Like because there's elk everywhere, but B, like to the way that we were hunting, it was a lot like Matt, who I went out to Colorado with, to the spike camp. He said from, what I was saying and like the way that I was explaining it, it was a lot like deer camp, like hunt hard in the morning, come back, hang out, do whatever.
Yeah, because then 80-degree temperature, these elk are
the
down.
weather, was dictated that to us.
And you can tell by about 8:30, most of the bugling stops, the activity. And by 9:30, you might as well head in.
Yeah, it
just gets that hot.
I just can't believe that we hit weather like that 2 years in a row.
We're going to get it right.
Yeah. I mean, it was, it was in the 90s. You got in the 90s in one day up there, 2 days,
It was 94 and where I had to go buy my truck.
Right.
Down in that town.
Yeah.
94 degrees.
So, I mean, it's like
late September.
You can't make the weather. You know what I mean? You got to go with what you got.
It's still hot out there.
Oh, yeah. But there wasn't no flies there, was there, Adam?
Not till you knock something down, right? Or they're in your house.
Or you're in their house. Like where we were staying, I've never seen so many black flies. That was not advertised on this. It was like, are you in?
I mean,
what about the black?
What would your wife do if she walked in and seen all those flies? My wife would go, I'm not staying here.
Oh, yeah.
But yet the people you talk to says, there's more this year for some reason. No big deal. They'll dive bomb you every now and then at night.
Yeah. They had them on me a little bit,
Well, they were so bad. Like, and they were so bad, and it was so hot. Like, if you didn't cover up your bed at night, there was dead flies on your pillow. Like, because they'd just fly around until they died. And it was everywhere. There were so many.
Well, they can get in. Somehow they can get into that log home.
Here's the downside for me. My BiPAP mask. I had to cover that up because they were going like, yeah, we're gonna get in Frank's hose, and we're gonna climb over here, and he's gonna suck us up tonight,
And these weren't your Michigan version of
they're
little black
larger
housefly. You can hear these when they go by you. And then an elk during the day.
Oh my gosh.
Now, see the difference between Frank's?
Yeah, there was no flies or anything on Frank's, and
Juniors?
Junior killed one. And so
Thousands.
So on this quote unquote like easy elk hunt, like I probably average close to 5 miles a day, like on my watch. And like the day he killed his elk, I did 7 miles. That night that you killed your elk, I did 6-7 miles.
Yeah.
I did more than that, I think, because of the track. But like, so he had killed this elk, and it went 100 yards straight down. And I wasn't like concerned about that. I volunteered to go on it. Ernie went, and Frank and some of the other guys were like, nope. And actually, they just polled everybody and said, who are the youngest people? And you're going.
I had seniority over all of them, So.
And so we started going down, like just following the blood trail down. And he had already found the elk, so we knew where it was. So we came back with the frame packs, and we did not come back with the game bags again. So I had to crawl out of there.
I couldn't believe it. I was sitting here. Was I bullshitting with Don?
Yeah. We were looking for a volunteer.
I was bullshitting with Don, and all of a sudden here comes Adam.
I'll go.
Adam on. I'm going, what are you doing? It's the game bags. He's going, oh my God,
Junior had him in his hand.
Yeah.
He set him down.
So it's not like I'm exaggerating, Ernie. What was it, the terrain like getting down there?
You had, if it wasn't for things you could grab onto, it was like a lot of willow brush, stuff like that. But if it wasn't for thank God for a few little, probably mule deer game trails, I'd have fell 10 times if I wouldn't have had something to hang on to just getting down.
And thank God that it wasn't like a bull elk of some sort, because trying to get antlers out,
you'd had to cut trees.
It would have been.
Said there was briars and all kinds of stuff.
The briars weren't nearly as bad as it was like up where me and Junior hunted.
Yeah.
But
like, really
the last day me and Junior went through, it was bad, like bad. But this, like, I was like trying to explain it to people who like. Because I don't know what kind of if you would have told me willow brush, I would have said like I don't know, but it was like 100 yards of going through like 100 yards solid of like lilac bushes.
Yeah, but they're pretty stout.
Yeah. On the side of
he had to cut
45-degree grade.
He had to cut a couple on the way out because people were packing. I fortunately I didn't have to pack, but I had all I could do with. I had one walking stick. I had to kind of make a route up, and I had all I could do to get up there. And I can't imagine if it would have been a bull.
Twice.
Oh yeah, and then of course between you and John, it was almost like, you guys going to flip a coin or what? Or was it Danny and Junior?
But the deal at the end,
John let Danny throw it on his back.
At the end, though, when you guys get up there and we get back, by the truck and everything, and Austin has muck boots on.
Yeah,
and
he did the whole thing in muck boots.
I'm going, you got to be shit.
And
85 degrees.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, so we can,
probably.
He rolled them down.
What would you think that walk was just to get to where he shot it?
Oh,
quarter mile.
Yeah, it wasn't
100 feet up.
Yeah. It sucked, but it wasn't bad.
Yeah, but then it was like diving into the abyss.
Down,
Then going down. But
Frank.
But the
unreal.
The steepness wasn't anything compared to the thickness of it.
Yep.
Well, that's just like
both were bad.
That mountain right there on that side. That I've never seen stuff that don't break. You know what I mean? You walk through shit like Michigan, snaps off, or whatever, Better give me another one too. And you know what I mean? You walk through that stuff like, yeah, it'll bend or something like that. This stuff don't even bend, man. I mean,
none of the oak brush does.
No, it's a nasty stuff.
It takes a 500-pound animal to break.
Oh, and he couldn't do it.
He did a little bit.
Yeah, he busted some, but man, he was like, he was hung in it,
But like, I mean, you're talking about, Austin's footwear. I mean, he did the whole thing he did the whole thing in cowboy boots.
Oh yeah,
like it was not like he had.
Jay did too.
Yeah, Jay, I think, didn't he have boots? I don't know.
I think
but
both had cowboy boots.
But it was wild, and we can kind of wrap up or whatever. But like, I would be remiss if I did not mention.
Well, all I want to say is...
just hold on, though. I'll be remiss if I didn't mention that while we were tracking Jay's bull the third day, we talked to the owners, and they said they'd found a couple deadheads in this one thick-ass spot. And so we walked all the way in there, and we had to walk up this creek and go back and forth and blah, 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 blah. Cross one side just to get through. It was so thick, nasty, all that stuff. And we found bones everywhere. I'm sure we found where the things were. Coming back, we're like, we'll just walk down the creek, and I'll be damned if like I don't step down and just full on scorpion eat shit in this creek. Like, my boots never touched the water. It was just my face, torso, everything. I mean, just ass up in the creek.
Well, refreshing.
It was very refreshing and cool.
But it was a little hard on your below your knee, right?
Yeah, it scraped up my knee, or bruised my knee, scraped up my thing, and Austin did the exact same thing, like right behind me immediately after seeing me do that. I was like, careful, that rock right there is slippery. Fucking boom. He's in the water. But he went in, his boots went in, and he had cowboy boots on. So he left them out in the sun to dry. That's why he had muck boots on. And then they dried out and they shrunk up. So he couldn't barely get his boots on. Oh, man. It was a mess. But, as the week went on, kind of, I don't know if it was kind of like the same as a lot of hunts or the exact opposite. I feel like sometimes, you go in and you feel like you need that one more day to figure it out or something like that. And we hunted right up until the last day, last hunt, like the season closed. So there wasn't like, we could have like, if we just had one more day or something, like the season closed. But I don't know if it was the pressure, if it was the weather, if what the deal was. But we had kind of like less and less encounters. But the second to last day, we went in back to the spot where Danny and I had seen those elk the night that you had killed your bull, and we hadn't hunted in there at all since then. And we go in there, and they gar-holed me, and Danny had a satellite bull and the herd bull and calves and cows on the side of the mountain, opposite side. We went and hunted in there the next day, and they weren't having it. They just weren't in there. And then Senior had a spike basically walk right up to him. He's at full draw, and he says to me, he says, "You know how hard it is to let down at 6 yards, like without being
nuts,
seen?"
Man. I don't know. That'd be the most difficult thing for me to do.
Let down.
But the first day, I told Junior this. I said, the fact that you got an elk, that you had that, and we got to share that whole experience was worth the price of admission. That was my hunt right there. And then really cool to be there essentially, I guess Ernie carried the bag of scraps up, but to carry all, because it wasn't far, but there was too many chiefs I needed to get out of there. So
30 yards.
So every time they got done with a bag, I carried it up to the four-wheelers. So I carried, 90% of the meat up for you. But to see,
remember that when you start dividing that elk up a little
I know.
bit, he says.
That's why I'm cutting
that's
your
what I
deer
said. When we were down in that hole.
Oh yeah, he's paying you back.
With Danny's elk, I said, remember, boys, whatever you bring up, you get to keep.
Well, what's funny about that is that's how my brother-in-law goes out with his brother in Idaho.
Yeah.
That's what they do. Whatever you pack out, you take home.
So
But
you got the good
they
bag
gun
of Franks.
Yeah, I had the pack straps. And,
Yeah, we ate the heart.
well, before you close, though, I want to something very important. If it wasn't for senior and junior, we wouldn't even be doing this.
No.
They're damn good. They're damn good elk
Well,
hunters.
Danny Jr. is the one that found this spot.
And you know, he found
Where
it
I
on, it might have been an ad on, I don't know if it was
Facebook.
Marketplace or something like that. And he just decided, what the hell, I'll call it.
And you know what?
And that's how it happened.
They were invited over here, and they're really shy. I feel like I know Junior. He don't want to talk about nothing, but for me, like one of the things that I want to kind of hammer home on this whole thing is, we went out there. If you want to say like what do we have? 1, 2, 3, 7 guys from Michigan, right?
Mm-hmm.
That were, all
6.
Okay.
4 from Ohio.
Okay. But so they're all damn near, if not, they were damn near in tears for Frank shooting this bull and getting the silverback gorilla off his back. And I think that's one of the things that anybody who's listening that's the people that you want to surround yourself with. You want people to be happy for your accomplishments.
Well, when you're hunting with guys that would, for example, senior and junior, they get as much out of calling one in and you killing it as they would. I mean, senior said, man, I'd much rather Frank or junior or you shoot one if I can call it in and stuff. They truly get a bigger kick than that out of that. And that's special people.
But the ultimatum is when he's going to cut your fucking string.
Well, it's pressure.
You better hit that son of a bitch. You know what I mean? That's all I'm saying.
I think that's what I might start doing with you.
But I mean, that's the real thing. That's the takeaway. Like that, those are the people that you want to surround yourself with.
Absolutely.
I mean, you look at it right now, and I feel like me as the next generation or like the younger generation, it's like we're almost dealing with a whole nother generation with the people who listen to the podcast and all of that. I mean, we got the biggest deer that's ever been in this garage right now hanging there.
Oh, yeah.
And, guys call you and say, I just shot a monster, like I shoot the little guy there and he says, tell me you shot that with a trad bow. And he's like, fuck yes. Like, the people that want to celebrate your wins just as much as you do, or maybe even more.
Yeah.
That's what you need to strive for. There's always going to be guys that are going to kill animals. There's going to be better hunters. There's going to be anything like that. But if you can,
that don't mean you'd make camp with them and drink a beer with them.
Exactly.
Right.
I mean,
right. And look at the time the three of us right here have spent together in the woods, over the years and stuff. And the knowledge that you acquire, you know what I mean? We're not the greatest hunters in the world, you know what I mean? I'll give you that, but I've killed my share, and Ern's killed his share and you killed your share. And it's all the knowledge that we acquire and the fellowship, you know what I mean? That's what it's all about.
Exactly.
That's what this whole elk hunting thing is about too. Like I said, it's 5 years, man, and that was the first time I drew my bow.
I'll tell you this:
But he
don't fly
kept
out
going.
there. Don't fly out there. The elk gods frown upon that. Neither me or John drew our bow. Everybody else did.
Yeah, and he was so close. I mean,
I know.
We could have easily both killed that night, Frank.
We should have
Jay,
had realistically
four of them.
Knives, machetes, saws, and shears, multi-tools, shovels, swords, axes, spears, hatchets, and tomahawks. If it cuts, snips, slices, or chops, Midway USA has it. Find great gift ideas in our huge selection of pocket knives and other everyday carry folding knives. make a statement, or create a family legacy with one of our top-of-the-line hunting knives. We've got a great selection of manual and electric sharpeners, too. For just about everything for the outdoors, check out MidwayUSA.com.
Friends of NRA is your chance to support our Second Amendment rights and preserve America's hunting traditions. Join Friends of NRA at one of our 600 exciting events nationwide. From games to auctions and exclusive firearms, Friends of NRA events are your chance to support a cause you care about while having a great time with patriots in your community. Whether you're a seasoned shooter, an avid hunter or outdoorsman, or passionate about freedom, there's a place for you within Friends of NRA. Visit friendsofnra.org to find an event near you. Stand up for freedom with the Friends of NRA.
Well, realistically, I think we should have had 5.
Could have.
You know.
In one day.
Yeah. So,
But, two is good.
so again, back to like the whole thing, we've kind of gone the gamut to kind of show you all of the opportunities that you could have elk hunting. You could do it a whole lot of ways for a whole lot of dollars, but I think it all boils down to like find your people,
Right.
make a plan, and go do it and share the experience because
You won't regret it.
And and
It's
I
amazing.
like this place where we're hunting now. As far as where our accommodations are and stuff.
Well, you and I aren't 40 or 45 anymore.
No, man.
I
I'm
still
gonna
get
be-
out there, but I'm not the fastest guy on the mountain.
I'm going to
but
be 72.
I like nice
72 the
accommodations.
23rd of this month. But here's the
I
deal.
like a shower.
I enjoy the camps that we've had too. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
the remotes.
Those big spike camps we had up there. Yeah, that
the
was
tents and
that was
everything
fun.
else. The farting was a little bit, I mean,
I thought I did a hell of a job.
yeah, I have
But
never.
where we're at now
I
is
want to
just,
say this right now.
special.
My son-in-law farted on me more times in a week than he's ever farted on me before.
He's just trying to catch up.
Well, I didn't know those guys from Ohio real well, so I wanted to let them know kind of like how I fit in. They know Frank pretty well, so they're like, if he'll let this guy shit right on his shoulder.
The day though that we came back from having lunch with Joe when we were at the gas station,
Oh my God.
I made it right with you guys, didn't I?
Yeah, you bastard.
So one thing,
Almost triggered my gag reflex.
one thing though, I will say, like if anybody's going to do, kind of like a hybrid camp or going to hunt out of an Airbnb or a campground or anything like that, and you're going to have some sort of amenity, so you're not going in like with all your stuff on your back, and you're gonna have like a base camp, and you have somewhere that has power,
And the shower.
Well, no,
Not even that.
yeah, but what I'm getting at is
Laundry
how,
machines.
and maybe you want to get out there and you want to completely unplug and have no communication,
We've done
anything like that. But how valuable was that Starlink? That was
God.
Priceless.
it was the greatest thing ever to be able to call my daughter.
What we do, kick
and-
in $15 a man. It was amazing.
Oh yeah.
It's just like you're sitting in your house.
Yeah.
So for you guys who maybe need to work, but you're like, man, I can't go on an elk hunt because I have to work, or I got to be able to do this, or I got to be able to do that. That was incredible.
And look at when Ernie bought his truck. Don works for Ford. Got him a deal.
Oh Lord.
And it was because of that communication right there. That it was priceless.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just wanted to say that
Because we never had any
service
there at all.
You had service like when you were up on the mountain in some
Certain
spots.
spots.
Up
Certain
on the
spots.
mountain or another area.
Drive up to the cemetery,
Right.
which
Yeah,
is
so-
4 miles away.
Right.
So anyways, just for guys who maybe have time but they have to be connected.
Right.
Starlink.
Man, that was a very incredible
If they want to know
test.
money wise, it's if you have it turned off, it's $50 to turn it on and $100 a month to use it. You got to turn it on for a month, so it's cheap, especially if you can split it a few ways.
There's
But
no there's no way that that wasn't worth it, man. I mean, it was 100%.
yeah, it was amazing.
So, anyways, I just wanted to say that. I want to say, obviously, congratulations, Frank. I'm so glad that, and I know a lot of the listeners, a lot of our friends, Patreons, like
Right.
everybody was,
Right.
Rooting for you. And so really happy to see that, just the same. And, yeah, just what a fun hunt. What a cool story.
You ought to see how fast he can walk without that gorilla on his back.
Oh yeah, shit, man! I can run the 100 down about 4.6.
All I can say is that the deer here are in big
That's
trouble
right,
because
that's right.
Frank's got one under his belt now.
500-pounder.
So all said and done, okay. What did you think?
Well, all you can do, the best thing to do is ask him, would you go back?
Well, that's the real thing. I mean, when the hard part of answering this question at this current moment, and everybody is going to tell me to fuck off, essentially.
Maybe.
Yeah, they are. I don't know how some of these guys do it. Because this year, like, I hunted Montana, then I hunted Colorado, and then came back here, and then we've got the Patreon hunt, and then we're going to the UP, and then I'm going to Kentucky. Like, it's a lot to.
You're living life pretty good for a working man.
It's a lot. I mean, it's really
Agreed,
really hard.
That's why I asked you, earlier. Do you want me to put the uniform on tomorrow? I mean, what the
Go to
fuck?
work.
I mean, what's the deal?
But but so that like. With like being away from family and all that stuff, like I think this year was a lot. But as far as like elk hunting, that was super cool. Like I still haven't got to draw my bow. I learned absolutely so much. I liked the hunting.
and that's the thing you have to take away from it.
Right.
'cause
Right.
Oh,
I've
yeah.
been there
Like you
5
said.
years. I've killed one. Frank's been there 5 years, and he killed one.
I've only hunted
Senior.
I've hunted elk 4 times.
Senior, who was
Senior
probably
hasn't-
the
that
best.
That was his first time
Senior
he
and junior,
drew
the best hunters.
this year. Yeah.
And junior's killed 2
2.
in 5 years.
But he
But
killed
remember-
one with muzzleloader, right?
Oh, yeah,
no, I'm talking about on
He's killed 4
the
with a
hunts
bow
we're doing
and
together.
several with the muzzleloaders and
Yeah.
stuff.
Oh yeah, both those guys
But-
have killed. Oh, Senior's killed
In Colorado,
big boy.
it's a 10% success rate for bow hunters, and we've beat it.
Yeah. So back to the whole thing is like, would I do it again? Like, absolutely. I was already looking at dates for next year because I missed my daughter's birthday. So like, I mean, I'm not Frank Hackerberg. I can't do that every year. I can miss his daughter's birthday,
Well,
but I can't miss mine.
The only thing I can guarantee you is it's going to be that last 8 days.
week.
Yeah. So
We're lucky. We get
So we're gonna
get an
make
extra day or two.
a special birthday for Stella.
yeah. So
When's her birthday?
28.
September 28th. Yeah, it's tough.
Toward the end.
Yeah. It's like the end.
So what
But-
if you went out early and flew back on the 28th?
27.
27.
So, yeah. That's what I'm looking at. Like I would
'Cause
I would
actually-
100% do it again.
I think that first few days is better than the rest of that week.
Yeah. So
I'll just be real honest with
so
you.
that to me, but like, man, I got a lot of other, like I'm as soon as John gets his head out of his ass and he can finish his hunt or finish his house and get back into being a human being again. Like I want to go back to Idaho. I don't know how long it's going to take to draw because the draw thing is weird and you got to like camp out to do it. I want to go out there and go back and kill an elk there.
What'd you see in
That would-
Montana that you liked when you were bear hunting
Oh yeah, I could.
as far as elk?
Oh, I could do that, sure. But like we went out one time.
Is it tougher to draw in Montana?
No, it's just a draw. It used to be easier in Idaho, and we went out there, and we both had opportunities the first time doing it, the quote unquote like the hard way.
Oh yeah.
And I'm really confident that if we were to not go out there the first week again, if we were to go out there, I'm sure now that
about
we're
the 15th.
we're better hunters than we were, and I want to do that. I want to kill an elk with a bow. I don't care if I do it this way with you guys. That was great, and one of the guys isn't going out there, so if John can come out there and do it, that'd be awesome too. But like Idaho for me is like the thorn in my side, but going out there and sharing, it was more of a camp and
Right.
it was really, really cool. But it was, for me, and I know you guys know this, but like I am not the like lounge around camp guy. Like I want to be hunting. I'm out there to hunt, like to do something. And I'm not a guy there are guys out there who, if they don't kill something, it's not a success. And I learned so much being out there and being around that many elk that I can apply that to hear these guys like just cow call and the cadence and the way that they do it and whatever. And I learned that my bugling will bring in a bull. Like I know I'm like now, to be able to see that.
Yeah, you don't want to confuse what we're doing with what TV guys are doing because they're all after the herd bull or something like that. So you have to, bugling's a big part of that.
We're looking.
And then we're after elk.
Exactly.
And
doesn't matter if it's a cow,
between, the senior and junior have shared so much with us.
Oh yeah. They've killed a lot of animals.
And they don't care. I mean, you want to hunt with them. They're so happy to get something going. They'll back off so you can shoot. I mean, there's no selfishness at all in this camp.
No.
I was garholed, I'm telling you.
Yeah, John got after me and says, I ain't hunting with you next year.
But honestly, like the experience, super cool. But I mean, if I wanted to hunt in the desert, I would go somewhere else. Like the way, you can't buy the weather. You can't plan for
No, we'll hit it right.
And
I mean,
but
the
super
thing
cool.
is, the situations or the places that we've hunted out there, we've hunted the dark timber and all that, and then the oak scrub, and it's, but these animals live
in both places,
everywhere,
But I can also tell you this, like, I think maybe what drives that conversation a little bit is, I guess if it was 30 years ago or 20 years ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
What would be, when I can still go out there and
if I was
beat the brush,
but
but that's what I'm saying. Like me
30 years ago,
me being in my health.
Oh my God, I can't
to hunt this way versus the way that I started elk hunting.
Right, and
is just I have a different.
Understand, Adam, at your age now, you've been involved in elk hunting several times now. If you enjoy it, you're still young enough to take advantage of it. I was 59 my first year out there, and Frank was 66.
But I think
a little bit limited, but we don't have that much time.
Well, you got killed more elk than I have, so
so far.
But here's the deal. You know what I mean? We're at the point where
you're on the downward.
You know what I mean? That's what I'm saying. You know what I mean? It's not upward for us.
Yeah.
So
and all
you're
I can say
you're still in shape, to do these things.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
All I can say to these, you got a lot of Patreons out there, pretty young fellas, bunch of studs out there hunting whitetails and stuff. Some of them are beginners, some are damn talented and stuff. But I'll tell you what, you want to bump it up one time, figure it out, get out there and hunt elk.
Yeah,
because they're unbelievable.
I don't know. I just the hard part for me is that I just really, really, really love bow hunting, anything.
Absolutely.
So that's the hard part is like the time factor.
Sure.
Like,
and it's a long ways. Don't get me wrong. We spend the better part of 2 days getting there and 2 days coming back.
You essentially have like almost a week of travel.
Oh yeah.
Well, it's a lot.
And especially if you have problems.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
I just
I'm
wish,
good for a little while.
I mean, if we had a different situation, where we didn't have to haul all the equipment,
We're working on that.
we're working on that. But it's like that's
Or we can
that's
take
a big
a regular-
deal, man.
take a regular
that's
pickup
a huge deal,
Yeah.
If you could just drive a pickup truck out there, with guys in it,
Well, we'll still need a couple, but just pull one
Yeah.
wagon instead of
right?
a big one and a.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I'll definitely. I'm not giving up my spot if that's what we're saying. I'm in, but yeah, I like I say, I just want to say, congratulations, Frank.
Absolutely.
Hell of an accomplishment, and can't wait to see what the Whitetail Woods has for you this year.
I got deer, turkey, bear, elk, and then some other stuff on my vote. But what I'm saying is, what's next? I'm going
Woodchuck.
I haven't never shot a woodchuck. I don't think
We're getting a little old to chase moose.
that was
Frank had opportunity to hunt,
I
hunt
told
moose for
Terry
free.
about that.
Yeah, it only takes money.
Yeah, I don't think that would have been free.
It wouldn't have been expensive.
It would have been. Have you heard from him?
Yeah, he had a small bull that wouldn't come in. The other night it was hung up at like 100 yards or something, and he's posting pictures of the northern lights, just wild.
He's bow hunting only.
Bow hunting moose. Yep.
Yeah.
No gun backup type deal.
Nope. But all right.
How long's he got to his hunt?
I think it's a week.
Yeah.
Got till Friday. So, but yeah, we'll wrap this up. More to come because we got more stories. We got 2 deer in the garage we got to talk about, and that's just leading into the Patreon hunt. So stay tuned. But thanks everybody for tuning in, and again, congrats, Frank.
Thank you. Appreciate it.